Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Juggernaut, and I have a few video game ideas. Now, here's the thing, I don't really own a video game development studio or know anyone in the industry, and so I thought to myself, well, it's not a terrible idea to, I guess, share that with you guys, right? I mean, you know, it's the next best thing, right? Anyways, I do genuinely, that's all I wanted to talk about in this video. I have a few ideas for video games that I think really should be made, and a couple of comments on why we don't see games like that, and yeah, I know about the industry and etc, etc. I'll make the video worthwhile, I promise. So, with that said, let's get into it, shall we? So, the first thing I've noticed we don't really have is a spiritual successor to the old Call of Duties that's actually good and popular. Now, here's a controversial take. The best spiritual successor to the old Call of Duty games is COD Mobile. I swear to you, I'm not on any drugs. Hear me out. The contemporary Call of Duty games have received a mixed bag of opinions, and the series' general attempt to remaster and, you know, redo everything from the past just speaks about its lack of originality and creativity, but more so than that, this... sorry. My country, we say that, we take that as a sign of the person telling the truth. Anyways, its lack of originality, but it is also its continuing insistence to basically come up with a new game every year and just reskin the same stuff divides the player base and generally doesn't do anything good for the community, and as a result they've been received fairly negatively, and well, eventually, and I would say inevitably, they've moved on to the Battle Royale space, and Battle Royale games to this day continue to dominate the FPS genre, save for a few examples, save for a few exceptions really, like Valorant or Counter-Strike. We don't really have a good casual FPS. Didn't say that CS2 and Valorant are casual, quite the opposite, but that's kind of exactly the point, right? We have two hardcore, at least fairly hardcore games with, you know, big professional esports scenes and stuff like that. Where's the junk for us casuals, right? Where's the Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3, and where's the Call of Duty 4 as well, and COD 2 from back in the day, but maybe that's a bit too far away from now. Anyways, we don't have games like that, unfortunately, and it's, well, it's a bit sad, in my modest opinion. You see, Counter-Strike's all well and good. I play the game, I enjoy it, but it's too serious. I mean, I need to put myself in a special kind of headspace, and I need to warm up and all those things in order to get an actual game in. For me, back in the day, the go-to game for relaxing and not really thinking much was something along the lines of the old Battlefield games or the old Call of Duties. Now, Battlefield was great with its vehicles and all, but the minute-to-minute action and the multiplayer and the kill streaks and all that from the old Call of Duties was, to me, the best thing ever. Well, mind you, I was fairly young at the time, but it was great. And then the series sort of tried to innovate and moved away from that. And there are games out there that blatantly try and copy the old Call of Duties, you know, the Black Ops, the Modern Warfare 2, etc, etc, or the first Black Ops, I mean, the second one to an extent as well, and then Modern Warfare 2, the original Modern Warfare, etc, etc. However, the problem is those games are usually free and pay to win, which means you end up spending a heck of a lot more than the initial $60 asking price for Call of Duty that you originally, well, I suppose we originally did, but that you would nowadays as well if you went and bought those games at full price. And that's a bit of a problem, and it also incentivizes people to just keep buying stuff ad infinitum. The battle passes, the endless progression systems, and the increasingly weird and out-of-place character customizations. In fact, this is something that Call of Duty, the actual series, is suffering from now, I would say, as well. You see, if I buy Call of Duty, I want to Yeah, what? Nah, let me backtrack a little bit on that. If I buy one of these Call of Duty games that claims to be a remaster or a remake of the previous ones, I don't expect to find Homelander, Easter Bunny, and some sort of Groot-looking creature attacking me. I really don't. It takes all the fun and entertainment out of the game for me, I'll be brutally honest with you. I'm not saying COD Mobile doesn't suffer from this, it's for crying out loud, it's a mobile game developed by, I think, a Chinese company. Plenty of problems there just with that sentence alone, but it sort of, I think, captures a lot of the moment-to-moment action that we had in the previous games that is kind of gone now, and I'm not saying it's the best game out there, but it's the closest one we have. Now, I tried a game called Iron Sight, and it's alright, but it immediately tried to get me to buy ammo, which, once I've spent the appropriate amount of money on, it would let me play the game. I mean, not really. You could play with free ammo, but it's just worse than the paid one. Yeah. And I was told that Iron Sight is probably the least pay-to-win out of all of them. And fair enough, I think ammo is probably the only instance in which you buy power. I think all the other cosmetics that I was looking at are purely, just that, cosmetics. But then there's the other problem. The game has, 200, I think 300 players playing it currently. Not the healthiest player base, let's say. Another game that for me was supposed to sort of scratch that itch that I have was World War III, and we all know what happened with that. It made a lot of promises, it went free to play, it died. It's about 100 and something, 200 people playing it now. You can basically get one lobby full with everyone in the game. Yeah. Not great. The game just failed to deliver on its polish, on its everything, really. At one point it had 1,000 people playing. That was great. But, yeah. Now, sorry to have to say, not so much. So, we don't have... I mean, in essence, we don't really have a casual shooter that's just a shooter. We really don't, and it's kind of mind-boggling to me that it's all been taken over by Battle Royales, the Warzones and the Fortnites and such. A game like that really doesn't exist anymore. Certainly not one that's popular enough that you would play it with your friends and continue to play it in probably a few months, and, that you could say for sure that it isn't going to die very quickly. You're much better off just getting used to the Battle Royale formula and learning to like it if you can, because Fortnite isn't going away anywhere, and neither is Warzone. And then, yeah, okay, you have the Overwatch and the Apex Legends, and there's a few other games of that genre, but actually Apex Legends is another Battle Royale, isn't it? But you have, those hero shooters, I call them, where you have a whole bunch of superpowers and stuff like that, and, I mean, Rainbow Six Siege is a more tactical shooter, it's nothing casual like that, but it's also suffering from a similar problem, except, okay, maybe your superpowers are a little bit more realistic, and you call them abilities, and you give everyone unique items and stuff like that, but it amounts to a similar playstyle where it's not just a casual Modern Warfare 2 run-and-gun kind of deal. And instead, you're playing a superhero, or an agent of some description, doesn't matter. You're playing the character, it's not just a casual shooter. And so, there really isn't a game like that. Now, maybe I'm just looking at this with rose-tinted glasses, and what I mean by that is, maybe I'm just looking for a game that wouldn't work nowadays. It's too simple, it's too boring for people, and they'd rather play a BR or, just something else. Maybe, but I genuinely think there is a market for Modern Warfare 2, just, well, forgive the pun, but a little bit more modern. Yeah? Maybe I'm wrong, though, but I have an idea for a game like that, and I don't think it's a particularly bad idea. I think it would work, and it would gain some traction if executed properly and, without the overpowered aspects, I guess, of pay to win and etc, etc. But other than that, yeah, genuinely think that there's a chance for a game like that to exist and to do relatively well. At any rate, another thing which I had a itching for recently and couldn't find was, well, something oddly specific, but bear with me, I swear to you that this will make sense. How does a real-time RTS sound? I've lost many of you already. I know, real-time RTS isn't having the finest of days right now. The genre as a whole is kind of dying off, and I blame the fact that most of the younger generations just aren't interested in RTS anymore. Total War is probably, for all its faults, is doing the best to keep the relative genre kind of alive at this point, because it's I think the biggest popular, mass strategy game out there. That and I suppose Paradox strategy games, if you can classify them as RTS, but not really. Those are like empire management games. They're Paradox games, right? At this point, they're just a unique genre of their own. You can't really classify them as a traditional RTS. But anyways, despite, or maybe in spite all of that, I think there is room for a particularly interesting kind of RTS that would revolve around a campaign with persistency. Unit persistency, specifically. Now, how does it sound where you would get to go on a battlefield, or go on a grand map of the battlefield, say a World War II game, maybe. Could be Modern Warfare as well, could be anything, but say a World War II game, where you would play on one side as the Axis forces invading the Soviet Union, and on the other you could play as, well, the opposite, the Soviet Union defending itself. You can add, like, all sorts of factions, but let's just start with these two as a basic concept idea. And you would play the role of a relatively small force, a brigade maybe, or something like that, maybe a bit smaller. You wouldn't control massive armies, instead you would keep things at a micro level, a la Call to Arms or Men of War, right? And then, what would happen is you would have your army, you could buy new units, upgrade them, etc, etc, but through every mission, they would persist. So, let's say if you have one particular tank that does incredibly well, and you keep them through 4 or 5 missions, well, you still have that tank at the end of, through the entire campaign until you lose it. If you lose it. Kind of like XCOM, yeah? So combining all these elements into a campaign where you would pick your battles and choose where you would go on the battlefield and what your units would do, where they would be employed, and what kind of missions they would do, and some missions would be harder, some missions would be easier, etc, etc. You could pick and choose what you want to do and where, and the basic idea of the game is to help your faction win, right? Reach the end goal, be it Stalingrad, Moscow, or, somewhere deep in Siberia, or even Yekaterinburg. But anyways, how about all of that? And then you might be thinking, well, Juggernaut, that's probably a bit too ambitious, right? Yeah, all of those things, and you would probably, knowing you like to complicate things, you would add some sort of management mechanic on top of all of that with logistics and stuff for the actual grand campaign part. Well, here's the thing, something like that kind of exists already in a few games. One is Steel Division, but Steel Division is a war game, it's not a classic RTS. But yes, it exists in Wargame. You have different divisions, you have a grand campaign map, and you fight smaller individual battles. And my problem is, it's not an RTS, it's kind of like a simulation. That style of RTS isn't really for me. I'm thinking more along the lines of Company of Heroes, Call to Arms, or Men of War, depending on which one you prefer nowadays. Something like that, right? And also, the one thing I dislike about the grand campaign mode, if you will, for... my brain stopped working, sorry, give me a second. For Steel Division 2, is the fact that it's kind of like a one-off thing. You gain your divisions at the beginning, you can call in reinforcements, but there's no way to reinforce your armies. There's no deeper strategic level. Instead, you're just picking your battles here and there, and sometimes auto-resolving. It's on the right track, but it's too simple, and the scale is a bit too big. You command way too many units, you command all of them practically, and that individual tank that did really well 3 battles ago, who cares, doesn't really matter. You have plenty of reinforcements coming, or, you know, you don't have that personal feel, whereas with something like Call to Arms, which I really, really like, there's first-person mode, or a first-person mod, which allows you to take control over individual units as they fight. Now, if you take control over a squad leader and lead his squad to glory, and you do really, really well with it, you're going to remember that squad, and you're going to sort of keep thinking about that as the game progresses. That's going to be pretty bloody awesome. So, why not have something like that, except, you know, with the scale that I mentioned? Now, some of you that have played Call to Arms are now telling me, Juggernaut, that already exists, it's called Dynamic Campaign Mode. Except not really, because there's problems with that as well. The Dynamic Campaign Mode is a series of skirmishes where, or a series of missions where one day you're on the defense, the other day you're on the attack. It lacks a sense of scale and progress. You go from mission to mission, the campaigns are either short or infinite. And it doesn't matter, you're just picking random maps. There's no sense of progression of, I'm fighting a war. There's also very little sense in what you're doing, and what I mean by that is, it doesn't matter how well you do on today's battlefield, the AI doesn't have any way of competing against you, because you're too good as a player on this micro scale, so the AI cheats out the wazoo. I mean, the AI cheats every single second. It has an infinite amount of units, it has an infinite amount of resources, it has everything infinite, and it's there to just try and challenge you. That, and the game has also problems of its own in the more basic form of what it's actually trying to do, but, you know, with the unit AI being less than desirable, shall we say, and some other problems, etc., but, you know, there's also this, and I'm not a huge fan of it. So, ultimately, we're lacking games like that, and I had these few ideas, but generally speaking, I think it's not just me that has, like, these wacky ideas and wants to make games that, you know, might or might not work. I'm trying to connect this to a sort of larger issue in the industry that I think I'm seeing, and that's that originality is something companies kind of, at least bigger companies, kind of tend to stray away from nowadays. I'm not just talking about Call of Duty, I think I'm noticing this more and more throughout the industry. In movies, in video games, everywhere really. Here's what I mean. It's risky to make a wacky game idea like the ones I just suggested, which may or may not sound great, right? I'll also have another one, but I'll get to that in a second. I want to talk about the bigger issue at hand here. It's dangerous. Why not instead just remake a game from the past or make a sequel to a past game? It already has an audience, it will already sell something, and then you just need to make it good enough to sell a little bit extra, right? It's a risk, and people often, especially in bigger industry, or in bigger, in bigger industries, but in bigger companies and in an industry, tend to not take too many expensive risks. Why would they? I mean, I've talked about this a million times. It's better to make an average game and get average 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10 scores, but be guaranteed that score than try and make something superb and fail miserably. Because with a 7 out of 10, you're guaranteed a profit. Doesn't matter what it is. You're guaranteed that you'll keep the lights running for a year to come, and you will make another 6 out of 10 game, and then another one, and then exponentially you will grow slowly. It's sustainable, it's safe, it's easy, and from a business perspective, I completely understand it. Why risk everything and risk bankruptcy on a big project that might be awesome, but might not, period, when you can just make average stuff and be guaranteed success? Now, Juggernaut, what makes you think that average guarantees success? Well, it guarantees that you won't fail nowadays, because people will buy average games. They will also buy games they dislike. They will buy games with large amounts of negative reviews on Steam just because they are a part of a familiar franchise. So, it works. For now. But I do think this bubble will burst, and let me just expand this, I guess, theory of mine, or this thinking of mine, a little bit further. I also believe the same is true and the same problems persist in... oh, does this give you only half a heart? Ouch. I believe also the same problems kind of persist in movies. Currently, there's a superhero bubble, and we keep getting superhero movies which are continuously worse and worse, in my modest opinion. I mean, Avengers Endgame was kind of fun, and then after that, I haven't seen a single superhero movie where I was like, yeah, this is pretty good. Loki was an alright series. Season 2 I despise, it's just boring. Unpopular opinion, I know it's getting good reviews. I'm happy for the series, I'm happy for the lead actor especially. He's getting the recognition he deserves. He played, I think, in some Shakespearean plays, which you can tell by his acting. He's a phenomenal actor. I wish him nothing but the best. Tom Hiddleston, right? That was the name. I wish him nothing but the best. I'm really happy for the series because of that, but I've found the last few episodes just a bit too boring, I'll be honest with you. Anyways, there's a superhero bubble where we keep getting more and more superhero movies because it's the safe thing to make, I would say. It sells, and it sells pretty gosh darn good. That will burst eventually, and I think the average video game mania and the Battle Royale mania will eventually burst in PC games as well, and we're gonna have something new. For a while it was the Tarkov clones, right? We had a few Tarkov clones, and then they all kind of failed, and then, well, Tarkov's sort of slowly falling out of favour as well, and, yeah, you know, nothing lasts forever, I suppose. Anywho, the reason I'm saying all of this is I genuinely think that there needs to be a point in time where we say, I don't want to play an average game anymore. I don't want to play the copy of last year's Call of Duty and Battlefield and whatever. I want something new and brave. Yeah? Because an average game, you know, a new average game is alright. An average game for the 11th time in a row is, you know, on the same topic and on the same formula is getting a bit out of hand. And I think that's exactly what we're kind of seeing now. I mean, even if a game does really well and gets successful and gets all the good reviews and stuff, they will then continue to make it until it just makes no sense anymore and everyone hates it. Bold prediction, I think this is going to happen with the Spider-Man movies, with the Spider-Man games as well. Spider-Man games have been received very, very well. I think they're going to keep making it until Spider-Man 17 is just a bit too much for everyone, because it's the same swinging around the city with cobweb shooters forever and ever and ever. I might be wrong, I don't know, but it's certainly what Activision would do if it was Call of Duty, right? And then, kind of feels like it's what Battlefield would do as well. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being a cynical old bastard. I certainly think that's a possibility. I'm not above it or anything. But, yeah, I don't know. Anywho, those were my game ideas. Also, I have another wacky one, which I think a lot of people, a lot of the older viewers on my channel will appreciate. Why can't we get another Stubbs the Zombie game? Stubbs the Zombie is a forgotten gem. If you've never played it, please do. It's just that I've discovered it somewhat late, I think like 5, 6 years maybe after its release or so, maybe even a bit more. And I loved it so much, I played the game to death. I completed it once, replayed it immediately, and then completed it twice, and I think I played it a little bit more on the third run, but I never finished the third one. So, yeah, I was enamored with it. I mean, that was just an amazing game, but as a concept, the idea of the game is you play as a zombie. It's in the title. Now, it was satirical criticism of the Cold War America, etc., etc. All that's fine and well. Zombies in general are a satirical criticism of capitalism usually, and society in general sometimes. Depends. But anywho, yeah, so that was bloody amazing. It really was. But my point is, just generally speaking, a game where you play as a zombie and control hordes of zombies, it's difficult to pull off. It is. Stubbs the Zombie did it in an amazing way. There is also, and I will never not rant about this whenever I get the chance to talk about zombie games, there was a game from 2004, I think. I don't remember its name, but I remember reading about it in a magazine about PC games. We had those at the time, internet wasn't really all that popular, and all that full of information as it is today. So we bought magazines. It was towards the tail end of that sort of time, I suppose. Anywho, the game was cancelled mid-development, and I will never forgive the company who did that. But I think I kind of understand why. The idea was you would be Patient Zero in a zombie-infected world, and you would go around the city, infecting people, controlling hordes of zombies, fighting the army, fighting the police, etc., etc. Think of it kind of like Destroy All Humans, right? That game was incredibly successful, and the basic premise was, well, the same, except with an alien, yeah? It would be kind of like that, except, of course, you wouldn't be just a regular brain-dead zombie. No, you would be Patient Zero, so you would have all these superpowers and super strength and etc., but you would be a zombie at the end of the day. You would just control all the other ones also. And it was cancelled. I think one of the reasons was, well, you're going to eat people in this video game. 2004, let's just say the world wasn't all that open to it. Second of all, this sounds fun as a concept. You need to actually deliver missions that are fun. Eating people's zombies in a supermarket that you've just attacked is one way of having fun, but it'll only get you so far. Yeah, you need more there. You need additional types of missions because it'll get old very quickly, and I understand why it was cancelled. And finally, the third reason I believe the game was cancelled, maybe it was a bit too ambitious for 2004. You're talking about thousands at least of NPCs running around fighting each other, and zombies eating, again, thousands yet more of civilians in a whatchamacallit, in this hypothetical city where this would be set. The really, really obvious problem is, how the hell are you going to manage all of that? And how the hell is that going to perform in 2004? And the game was 3D, by the way, I need to point this out. The game was 3D, it was from the third-person perspective. You would actually go around and do the fighting yourself. How the hell did you manage that? So, I think you now get you know, the reason behind why it was cancelled a little bit more, but still, I would have loved a game like that. And it's more so that the concept in general of playing the monster, playing the bad guy, never really saw light again. Since that sort of time, right? The early 2000s to mid-2000s. Or between 2000 and 2010, I mean, it sort of died off in that 2005-6 era. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines was a really good game where you would play a monster and an evil guy. There was The Darkness, I think was called. It came out a bit later. Again, you played a kind of monster. Although you would mostly end up fighting criminals and stuff. I do think it had a few levels where you would fight police and stuff like that. So yeah, you would be definitely the bad guy. But yeah, and I think at one point it got a sequel too, so that was alright, but it was more of a traditional FPS kind of thing. And then, other than that, I mean, the whole concept kind of died off. And I think it would have been awesome. I really do. I think it would be awesome if we get more games like that where we would play as the bad guy. Why not? Let us live a little, you know? Not everything has to be Peggy 13, and I understand the risk behind it. People like the feeling of being good guys, and you know, they'll do probably the average Let's Player, or the average player, sorry, will go for the good choices first, and then it's a question of whether they'll repeat the playthrough or not. But we know from games like Fallout, we know from games like the new Baldur's Gate, which, yeah, I don't want to spoil that, but Baldur's Gate is kind of an exception to this rule, because there's so much freedom in the game, and yes, I know, if you've played Baldur's Gate and you're trying to tell me that you can... I don't want to spoil the game yet. It's new enough to where I don't want to spoil it. Yeah, there's... I know. Okay, I know. So Baldur's Gate may be a bit of an exception there, but it's a D&D game, and it's bound to let you have all sorts of freedoms. Or at least a good D&D game is, right? We played a bad guy in... Oh, what was that game? I think it was published by Paradox. It was a similar kind of RPG to Baldur's Gate. Geez, I can't remember its name, but we would play the bad guy in the sense of we would play the tyrannical villain. Or rather, we would help the tyrannical villain conquer a land, and... Yeah, I mean, I guess, but not really a monster, just a autocrat, if you will. Yeah, you could do some evil choices there, fair enough, but not really a monster, right? You're more sort of playing the conqueror, at least most of the time, so, yeah. Anyways, those are my ideas for some games that were sort of lost to time, and I think would be pretty awesome if we see some kind of iteration of those concepts. Maybe not necessarily exactly the type of game that I described, but it would be pretty cool, I think. I mean, think Call of Duty, think a Company of Heroes campaign with just persistent units. Just that, not much more than that. Psh, I'd love to play that. But yeah, anyways. Juggernaut Company of Heroes 3 has... Shush. Company of Heroes 3 is not a Company of Heroes game. It's really not that good. I'm sorry, it's lacking everything that made Company of Heroes 1 good, and then... I mean, people dislike Company of Heroes 2. It was mainly liked for its multiplayer aspect, which it did do well, but it didn't really... It departed from the original, I think, a bit too much, but anyways, it's fine, it doesn't matter. So tell me what you think. Do you have any wacky video game ideas that you wish were true, but haven't really come to fruition in any part of the world yet, and haven't been developed? Or do you think I'm just insane for asking things like these, and with plenty of games out there on Steam, you can just pick one up and enjoy it? You can probably find anything you want, and I'm just asking for things that wouldn't be fun. May sound fun in concept, but when you actually try and execute them, they wouldn't be any good. Maybe I'm doing precisely that. You know, who knows? Anyways, thank you very much for listening, ladies and gentlemen. Like, subscribe down below if you enjoy the video and want to stay tuned with the rest of the content that I produce on this channel. My name is Juggernaut. Like, subscribe down... Oh, I said that, sorry. I am thinking about two things right now, and I just repeated my own outro. Cut! Okay, so, like I said, like, subscribe down below, etc., etc. Really helps the channel out a lot, and I will, this is what I was thinking about, I will let you see the end of this run. The game in the background, by the way, is The Binding of Isaac. And it is really the perfect roguelite. I really believe that. As much as I liked Vampire Survivors, I played through that game a couple of times. I unlocked most of the achievements, or all of the achievements at one point. I know there's been updates since, but I've unlocked all the achievements at one point, and I was done with it. Isaac... sorry, I had a nasty itch. Isaac was something that I got bored of because I played too much of it, and then I just came back to it because I took a break, and I just love it. And there's nothing wrong with the game. Except maybe some of the item balance decisions that they've made, but other than that, there's nothing wrong with the game. It's just so perfect, and it just keeps you coming for more. It doesn't matter how many runs you have, it just keeps forcing you to, not forcing you, but it keeps inviting you to play it, discover new opportunities, new item combinations, new synergies, everything. It's just such a good game. Anyways, thank you very much for watching, ladies and gents. Like I said, I'll see you all in the next video. I have some new Let's Plays coming up, 2 new Let's Plays actually, and then I will probably come back to the older ones and stuff that I want to do again, like the Stalker stuff. I'll come back to that later, but now I have 2 a little bit shorter, but still 2 new Let's Plays, and I will be going back to, I think, for the entire year, pretty much. Well, not for this year, but for the entirety of next year, I think I'm going to go back to 1 video a day and that sort of schedule, and I think I'll be able to keep up with that relatively easily. So yeah, look out for that, I suppose. Anyways, that's all for now. Let's just enjoy the rest of this run. And that was it. Alright. If you stayed all the way to the end of the run to see how I do, I salute you. Thank you very much. See you around. Have fun. Take care. Bye-bye.